Good Monday morning. The summer's heat has finally broken. Glad to be back in the saddle with Alex. I took a few days off and spent 30 days in Maine. I did work while I was there, maybe too much, according to my wife. But Alex did talk me into doing a few videos. If you watched our video about banks versus mortgage companies, topic I like to talk about. But I did manage to get a full week of trying not to answer the phone and look at the computer every day, maybe snaking a sneak peek at email, but not being addicted to it as we are on a regular daily basis. It is sort of hard to turn work off after 40 years of being the banking mortgage business. You know, real estate and money never sleeps. And so if you leave it too long, it just feels a little weird. Thinking of sleeping, this week's topic is the stepped up basis. I call it sleeping because value is increasing while you own property, and then something happens to create this stepped up basis. So, what is it? Well, unfortunately, us baby boomers have not found the fountain of youth. We thought we would. We heard all about the things that we hear about today. The current 30 and 40-year-old generation are talking about being to live forever. But honestly, we didn't find it. And I hope they do find it. But people my age and older are starting to really die off, which is just maybe gruesome to say that, but it is a fact and it's unavoidable. And as a result, we see buyers, coming to us, not fully understanding the process of what to do with inherited property. Some think they, got big capital gains in this property and going to pay taxes. We've even had some think they need to do a 1031 exchange. So it's really just they don't always understand it. And I thought we'd talk about it and maybe we can help people as they plan for inheriting property. Because some of these things that you have to do are pretty important. Anyway, typically your parents purchased a property many years ago, and today the property is worth 2 or 3 times what they paid for it. And sometimes the property is transferred to multiple people, and sometimes it's held in an LLC. These are things I just want to point out that are pretty typical with estates, and something that we're glad to talk about, but we're not going to include today. But we do have good resources and good experience in talking to people and helping people with these type properties or situations, so to speak. And we're lucky in the sense that I majored in trust management in college, so I sort of learned a little bit about it in college, hopefully a lot, that you pay for it, about estates and management and death and stepped up basis and helping people manage money. But also, if we really have a problem, we go to the 1031 exchange company, Realty Exchange Corporation, Bill and Jeff Horan. They've been great to work with. They're always available. They're always willing to talk to us about situations and, figure it out for us and the client. So what is stepped up basis? Well, the basis is what you bought the property for. And stepped up basis is the value that the property is today, essentially, where we establish the value after death, and that becomes a stepped up basis, and the people inherit it then have that basis, that new basis, as what the property is worth and what they essentially paid for it. In other words, if the person bought a property for $300,000 and at death it's worth $1 million, and they do the process correctly, then the stepped up, the new value for the property of the people that are buying it is the $1 million. And if they sell it for $1 million, there is no capital gain. It's important that the value be established. That's why I say it's done correctly, because you can't just assume, oh, well, everybody told us it was worth $1 million and, there were comps and everything else. You have to actually go out and do an appraisal report and establish that value on the date of death, specifically on that day. That makes it different than a mortgage appraisal report, which is the value at the day of inspection. And those reports are good for, typically 90 or 120 days, because we don't think value is going to change that much within that time period. Beyond that, we would require a new report. Obviously, value changes over the life of somebody owning it, but they don't really own it anymore at their death. So the report that we get for a stepped up basis, same report that we would get for a mortgage, It just says the value of the date of death, say August 2024, when somebody died. That's a year ago. So we want to know what the value was a year ago. So one other thing that we often hear about, and I think it's worth mentioning today, is if you're thinking of gifting a property, can you avoid this whole process and not have to get it appraised and stuff like that? And do you, not have to worry about, being in the estate? Gifting really is sort of, in my opinion, a bad idea, because if you do that, your basis does not get stepped up. If you pay $300,000 for the property, the person that you gifted to has a $300,000 basis in it. And obviously, if you've owned it for 30 years or some 20 years even, or even 10 years, it's worth more than what you paid for, $300,000 in the examples we've been using. And so when you go to sell it, if you're later after your parents die or something, you say, well, I got it as a gift and I liked it and I've lived here for 5 or 10 years, but I've decided that I've got to move and get a new job or something else. Some other issue has caused things to change. And one thing about life is it's not constant. And so while we think we might do things forever, things just come along that make us decide to have to do something different. In this case, sell the property that was gifted to us. In that case, you're going to have a big 1031 exchange. I mean, a big capital gain. And the only way to avoid it is a 1031 exchange. So if you inherit it, you get the basis stepped up and you pay no capital gains. It's a great way to do it. Anyway, I hope this conversation was helpful today. Appreciate you watching. You can read this if you'd like. We hope you have a very good week. Stay safe and out of the hurricane zones. And we hope to see you tune in next week. Thanks a lot. Have a great week.